All right. I anticipate that we'll have quite a few more joining us here, but I want to go ahead and get things started just to go ahead and respect everyone's time. As I am speaking, everyone's starting to flow in here right now. So I want to welcome everybody. This is our Global Lifeonaire Connect call. This is where we are bringing Lifeonaires in from all over the country and the world who are just coming together where we can just share with you some of the things that are going on, just learn from other Lifeonaires. And this is an opportunity for us to just teach all of you, sort of something new where we can just be able to present you an information that might get you thinking. It might lead you in a different direction or help you along your Lifeonaire journey. One of the things that we are really focused on with Lifeonaire is just helping people to work less, make more, and live more. And, we have found that throughout the years that so often people build a business and they find themselves working so much that they never actually get to enjoy and experience life to go along with it. And even people who are making plenty of money find themselves in that trap where they are not living, experiencing the life that they had hoped that they would get out of business. And we hope to sort of eradicate that through Lifeonaire and help people to live and experience an abundant life. And so one of the ways that, we do that and just trying to introduce the entire community to some of the methods that people are using that is just by bringing guests onto these calls. And we sort of have the last couple of months, we did a versus series where we talked about, different types of investing versus another type of investing, or borrowing money versus being debt free. And what we are trying to accomplish on these calls is not to say, hey, there is one right way to do it. That's been a problem in the industry, is that there has been too many people saying, hey, if you want to be successful, you have to do it my way. And at Lifeonaire, we say, well, we don't know what the right way is until we actually get to sit down with you, get to know you. You've come up with a vision for your life. And then from that vision that you have for your life, that's where you design your plan. That is where you actually design a business to serve the lifestyle that you desire to live. And so what we're going to be sharing with you today was really just helping you to get inside of the head of our guest, Jeff Guo. Jeff is going to be sharing with us how he arrived at his plan for living and experiencing an abundant life. Just give you some of the insights into what works for him. Now, with that in mind, again, you're going to find and you're going to love some of the things that Jeff shares with you here today. And some of you are going to want to drop everything you're doing to get out there and do exactly what Jeff is doing, because he's pretty awesome and what he's doing is pretty awesome. But again, that is not our intent here. Our intent is not to say that everybody on this call should be doing what Jeff is doing. And you'll find that through some of the things that we talk about here with Jeff, that some of the things he's still trying to figure out a little bit of it himself. And the number one reason that Jeff is a part of Lifeonaire, and I should let him share it with you, so I'll share it from a very general perspective, is he wants to not let business take over. He wants to be a family man. He wants to be a husband and a father, and doesn't want his business pursuits to get in the way of that. So in any case, I want to go ahead and just invite Jeff and just welcome him here to the call. And so, Jeff, can you hear me? Are you with us?
Yep, I can hear you, Steve. I can hear you.
So, Jeff, real quick, do you mind just going ahead and maybe sharing a brief introduction of who you are and a little bit of your story with those who are on the call with us?
Sure, absolutely. So hello, everyone. My name is Jeff. I believe my wife, Chloe, just joined as well. She's my better half, coming up 7 years of marriage. So I was born and grew up in Shanghai in China, and I came to the US when I was 18 years old. And I know I want to do real estate ever since high school, ever since the Rich Dad Poor Dad. So I studied finance and real estate in college and worked for a few real estate institutions on both the equity and also on the debt side for a number of years. and started buying stuff on my own a few years earlier. Started slow, but recently it's picking up the traction a little bit. Joined the Lifeonaire about 8 months ago and in Steve's group. And we just learned so much from Steve and also other members in our group about not just business. Business is probably 20%, and the other 80% is about just life, the philosophy, etc. So married with my wife, Chloe, who's on this call. And we have a 4.5-year-old daughter, Joy, and we're expecting the second one, just found out a few weeks ago. Next January. We live in Orlando, Florida as our family.
Awesome. And so, Jeff, you have been exposed to, real estate at an institutional level, working with some of the people that you have worked with. And there are thousands of ways to make money with real estate. I mean, we could sit here, and if we wanted to do a call every month for one different type of real estate investing to be able to make money with it, we would be booked out for many, many years to come and still have topics to talk about as far as how to make money with real estate. You haven't landed on just one thing. Yeah, there's a few things that you do, but let's just talk real quick. Commercial versus residential. What are your feelings about those two?
Yeah, absolutely. So I love all sorts of real estate and try to, be exposed to as many things as possible. So as I mentioned earlier, the first job that I had after college was pretty lucky. I worked for a Washington, D.C. based real estate investment trust. So basically it's a publicly traded institution that by law is required to distribute 90% of the annual net income to the shareholder. So it's a publicly traded company. And the division that I used to work for in the capacity of asset management is a shopping center division. Got a portfolio of roughly $350 million, 16, 17 Class A and B neighborhood shopping center around DC area. Got about 400 tenants in our portfolio. And as the asset manager, my job was to manage the financial performance of the shopping center from leasing and property management, et cetera. And so kind of being exposed early on to the commercial world, if you will, and invest in a few deals in a shopping center. And then, obviously, technology and Amazon, all that stuff, they're doing okay, but some of them are not doing as well as expected. So a few years ago, I stumbled upon, affordable housing. And I thought, okay, that's interesting. So the more I look into it, the more interest, I'm in looking more of this asset class, even though that's not my professional background. Each industry is different, like Steve said, but right now, I'll say 99% of my focus is on the residential side. And we can talk in more detail, Steve, but I think the high level is, I believe there's always going to be a demand for affordable housing, regardless of the market cycle going up, the market cycle is going down. I think the demand is just there, which might or might not be there for some of the commercial, such as shopping center. I mean, the best location will always be there, but in affordable housing, I just think the demand will be there for the next few decades to come, which I feel very good about.
So I think it's pretty interesting. So you're focusing on the affordable housing because you see the demand, but you question the demand for commercial and whether or not that will always be there. And I tend to agree with you. I believe that there will always be a demand for good affordable housing. I mean, there is affordable housing out there that's not good, and you deal with that too. But you have a unique advantage over a lot of us from the perspective of you have a different perspective of having watched and seen what's happened with real estate in China, growing up in China and seeing what's happened there. How would your experiences in China contribute to some of the philosophies that you're developing, or some of the trends maybe that you're even seeing here in the United States that are helping you to form your real estate strategy here?
Sure, absolutely. So, I mean, every investment has a thesis, right? And not to say, someone's thesis right or wrong, just theses are different. And the thesis that I focus on is that, just kind of like born and grew up in China. And in terms of Chinese culture, owning a home, be it home ownership, is like huge, regardless what economic class you're in. You can be rich, you can be middle class, you can be lower middle class, it's almost like everyone's dream to own a home. Um, we love buying rental properties, but this house in Orlando, which we purchased 6 months ago, was the first time that our family has bought a place for us to live, which always been renting because we love the flexibility. And every time I talk to my grandma, who's 84, and she'll be like, when are you going to buy a home? When are you going to buy a home? I said, Grandma, it makes no sense for us to buy a home when the rent is so much cheaper than when you're going to buy a home, right? So it's engraved in the Chinese culture. So in Shanghai, the city I'm from, for example, a 2-bedroom condo right now, you're probably going to be buying for about somewhere between 1.8 to 2.5 million US dollars, right? And the rent are, I don't know, about $2,000 to $3,000. So you're looking at using a 1% rule, use that to apply to China. It's almost, there's no return. But people still like to buy because that's so engraved. And China has one of the highest savings rate in the world. I believe last time I looked at it, somewhere between 40 to 50%, which is incomprehensible given the Western culture. So what will happen is the home ownership percentage in China is much, much higher than it is here. As a result, the demand for rent will be lower. And coming over to this country, one thing I learned is rent is just part of, I wouldn't call it part of life, but home ownership here is about 65%, give and take. And people are okay with renting. And also because of the low savings rate in this country, Steve, I don't know, somewhere between, I guess, 2% to maybe 5 or 6%, there will be certain, demographics that might not ever be able to come up with the 20% down payment to buy a home. As a result, there will always be demand for people to, workforce space to want to rent an affordable and clean and safe place. So that's where our investment thesis come into play of how can we provide people with an affordable, clean, safe place, and knowing that the demand is only going to go higher with the decades to come.
This might be a little bit off topic, but you mentioned that a 2-bedroom condo in Shanghai is 1.8 to 2.5 million. When you were a kid, say 20 years ago, how much were those condos then, and what has contributed to that? And do you see anything happening here in the U.S.?
Yeah, I mean, I remember the year 2000, I was in middle school, and I think China just joined the WTO. At that time, the condos were new build. They were for sale at that time. Still, I remember because I was looking at some new ones with my parents for somewhere between $150,000 to $200,000. So like, oh my gosh, this is so expensive. It's going to be a bubble that's going to burst. And some people bought it. Our family bought a few, and some people, let's just wait before the price drops. And the same condo that was on sale for $150,000 to $200,000, exact same condo, same location. It's just 20 years older. Now they're up for tenfold, $2 million. So, and what I have seen is that instead of seeing the real estate price to go up, it's really the amount of currency that's been printed in China, and each Chinese citizen is only allowed to take out $50,000 to bring that overseas, right? So what will happen is all those currency that's been trapped in the economy, and where do they go, right? Chinese people like to buy real estate. So real estate price go up because of all the currency that's been printed. Another is the stock market. So the way I looked at it is almost like the currency has depreciated so much that the real estate is worth 10 times more than what it was before.
Do you see that happening here?
I think, absolutely. I mean, not to the same scale per se, 10 times, house price increase in 20 years, but no, absolutely. Like the amount of currency that's been printed last year, I believe it's 30% of all the currency in circulation. And that money has gone to real estate and other places for sure. And we're trying to buy our second home in Florida right now. And we actually just lost a bid yesterday or the day before, Steve, that you gave me some advice on. We were $20,000 above asking, and we lost. And I think a lot of that has to do with the amount of currency that's been printed. And again, I think real estate price is going up, but it's more about, for me, again, my position, the currency is just worth less and less than where it was 12 months ago.
So let's jump back. Affordable housing, there's all different kinds of affordable housing, and there's not just one place that you've landed. You just brought up that, hey, I tried to buy a second house. That was a single family home in the Orlando area. So you have single family homes. What other type of affordable housing are you targeting?
Sure. So I love all the affordable housing across the space because I think demand is there. I started with some single family home, just plain vanilla, and ironically, that's some of our best performing, stuff. And also, we have some invested in some single family portfolio as well in sort of like Rust Belt area at a very low cost basis, duplex and triplex apartments as well. And the two asset class I'm focusing more on right now, Steve, is the mobile home parks and also RV parks, for the reason that in the apartments we target class B and C, we stay away from class A, and mobile home parks, RV parks, it's really somewhere between class C and someone who does not really have a home to stay per se. And we think that that space, the demand is even going to be higher because if the economy take another turn, people who live in the class C space might want to decrease their cost of living by moving to a mobile home park and RV park space. So those are the two spaces that we focus primarily right now.
This is just a question I got off the top of my head that as you were just talking, the RV parks, people are somewhat mobile. So how many of the people who go into an RV park, how long are they staying in there? How long can you expect them to be there as a tenant?
Absolutely. So I think that is something I'm learning as I go as well, Steve. And my conception of RV park, our family loves traveling with RVs, the KOAs and others, very high-end campgrounds. I think that's people's first impression when it comes to RV parks, where you pay $40, $50 a night, you park your car, and then you leave, you stay for a few days, then you leave. That was my impression. Until when I start getting myself into this business, I realized, wow, there are people out there who live in their RV in the same park for 5 and 10 and 15 and 20 years. And one example I can share is that we just closed on a 125 unit RV park last Friday. And as we were doing the due diligence all through the rent roll, some tenants has been there since 2003, 2004, 2005. The reason simply because, they're paying $250 a month rent, and there's nowhere else in the 100-mile proximity that they can live at that low price. So it is really become one of the most affordable and cheapest way for people to live. So even though RV does have wheels, like you say, Steve, but because of how affordable it is, it almost became a permanent homes for a lot of our tenants there.
So here's something. I had a conversation. This is a young man. He happens to own 3 businesses. He is 17 years old. Successful businesses. He runs an ambulance transportation company. He has a landscaping company. And off the top of my head, I can't remember what the other one is. 17-year-old kid. But he was getting ready to go make an investment into a big trailer, RV type one. And he was going to spend a lot of money on it. It was probably going to be about $250,000. And when I, questioned him, I said, well, what are you going to buy a house? And he said, no, I don't want a house. I want this trailer. I want to be able to live wherever I want to live, and I can just take my home with me. And it was interesting hearing him talk about that because it was odd to me. That's foreign to me. But then I have since met a couple of other people who that is the way that they want to live. And so is that becoming more popular, or is it very popular, but we don't necessarily know about it if you're not in that world? But what are you finding? Do you see that as a trend that more and more people may be going that way?
I believe so, Steve. And I think just like a lot of other things, right? COVID has really speed up things 5 and 10 and 15 years ahead of time. For example, working from home. It's a concept that's so foreign to a lot of people. I remember I used to have some friction with my manager years ago about working from home. And so, no, there's no way this is possible. But my wife has been working from home for 10 years, for example. But right now, people, oh yeah, work from home, no problem at all, right? So COVID has speed up things so much. And I think RV is another space where I believe last year in 2020, in the entire United States, 425,000 RVs were sold in last year alone. We're like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of RVs. They need to find a place to park. So let's find some RV spot. And I believe a few people within Lifeonaire group that I have spoken to, they also embrace the RV lifestyle. Our family loves RV. So to answer your question, Steve, I think based on the numbers and based on the people that we talk to, based on the occupancy, I mean, I think COVID really has speed up this life trend, which I think is going to continue to go that direction because of the flexibility it provides, because of the affordability that it provides. So we're pretty bullish on this sector.
So this is just another question that maybe a little bit off topic, but in an RV park, as I have been pursuing tiny homes, now to me, tiny homes are just a smaller home, but I came to recognize that the true definition of a tiny home is a home that's on wheels. That's not, when I say tiny home, I'm thinking of a 600 to 800 square foot cabin on a permanent foundation, but tiny homes is a whole new industry, and technically a real tiny home is considered to be an RV, is my understanding. Mm-hmm. When you look in these parks, how many of those would be considered your typical trailer versus a tiny home that somebody has pulled in to the RV park?
Yeah, so we did actually, we drove around the market yesterday on a new potential acquisition looking at. We did see some parks that has tiny homes that fits your description, Steve. And that is actually another area that we're very, very interested in because, again, how affordable it is. And it has all the utilities. 600 square feet home might have all the utilities of a 2,000 square feet home. I'll say it depends on the parks. One park, that we bought about 3 weeks ago, that is a hybrid between 60 mobile homes, a few RV parks, and a few boat houses. When I say boat houses, I was like, what is boat houses? So apparently people build a boat like a house and park at a park where we bought and pay the park $200 to $300 rent. That's another way for people to live. And tiny home, we have not yet bought a park that has tiny homes on it, but same concept, right? Like a mobile home and RV park. I think it has a huge amount of utility for the cost that, it brings.
So I want to just share this, and this may support some of the stuff that you're saying, but there was a tiny home community here in Tennessee that I had come across. And as I'm doing my research, I had found out that this tiny home community, once they established it, they were selling the lots. So they parcel of land, and this was intended to be a tiny home community. And rather than renting the lots, selling them for $30,000 to $40,000 per lot. And when they first opened up the community, they sold out the entire community within 2 weeks. They had no clue of that. They had a couple of model tiny homes in the community, and people just flocked and bought it out. So they did another community right down the street with over 80 lots, and they sold that out in 2 weeks. And now I will say this, the lots, some of those were waterfront lots and they sold for significantly more, but the lots just keep going up and up and up in price, where people are paying $100,000 for a lot in these communities now. And and it is the idea of, they can put a tiny house on it. They have a place to live, a place to get away. Everything they need is there, and it's still more affordable than what other alternatives are.
Those $30,000 to $40,000, Steve, is that just the price for the lot, or that's the price for the lot plus the tiny home that's on top of it?
That's just a lot.
Oh wow!
So those people had the. Now here's those people frustrate me a little bit because the tiny home manufacturer, who I really wanted to be able to buy some homes from, can't supply them because there's a 2-year waiting list for these communities. And so now these people are buying the lots and getting on the waiting list to actually get the home. And the price of the homes, which were $60,000 to $70,000 pre-COVID, are double that today. They're $120,000 to $140,000 for the same house that you could have bought pre-COVID. And yet they still have no problem with people getting in line to buy them.
Got it. Yeah, I guess eventually the price might come down once the supplier chain is more in place. But the concept of tiny homes, right? It's about, having a good quality of life with less things. I mean, that concept is so powerful. And, we can see that from just the general shared economy before COVID, the WeWork and the Uber. I mean, how to maintain the same quality of life with less resources, with less material. I think it really comes down to my thesis of affordable housing, because it really does not take a lot of resources, but people can have a reasonably good quality of life. And same thing with tiny homes. So I love all that concept, how to make things more efficient.
Yep. All right. So you're sitting in your car talking to us right now. Why are you in your car?
So when we talked about this, session last week, Steve, I mentioned to you, I'm flying to Houston to look at an RV park that we have under contract. So I'm actually sitting at one of the market competitors' RV campground and just park my car here, and I can, quickly just do a screenshot to see what the RV park, looks like. So this is a 50, 60 unit RV park outside of Houston, Texas, concrete pad by the water. And some of the RVs here are pretty nice. So most of the people here just live here on a long term, kind of like affordable housing. And the rents here are roughly $500 to $600 per month. They have their own RV versus in Houston, if you want to get a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom apartment, you're looking at least double, if not more than that. So to answer your question, Steve, I'm here in Houston due diligence on another potential acquisition, and also having a lot of fun and with my wife's approval to come here.
So I have a quick question, and this, so maybe just a little bit of curiosity. Somebody pays $500 to $600 a month to be in that particular park that you just showed us. What's included in that $500 to $600?
Yeah, so for this park, which is a very nice one, concrete pad and everything, it's basically just the rights to park. And you have the water hookup, you have the electricity, you have the Wi-Fi. Usually Wi-Fi is included, but the tenant need to pay for their own electricity and for their own water. Each space is separately metered. So it's basically just the rights to park here for a month.
So that doesn't include their water and electric?
Nope.
Or pumping?
Mm-hmm. Nope.
Wow. So each one of those concrete pads has a separate electric meter and a separate water meter?
That's right.
Interesting. So I would have thought that it was sort of an all-inclusive price, but that is literally just the park. Doesn't Walmart let people park for free?
Yeah, I know, exactly. And but people still like a nice and tidy place to park. And there are some, parks where they do like a overnight rental, so each night I think they charge somewhere between $40 to $50, which is on a monthly basis, that's $1,500. If you just stay here for one night, then everything's included for $40, $50. But if you stay here for long term, a month, if longer, if not longer, then mostly the tenant will be responsible for all the utilities.
All right. So RV parks, we talked about that. Mobile home parks is different philosophy. Is it a different product as far as you're concerned? What's the difference between the two, if there is any?
Yeah, it is both service the affordable house thesis, Steve, but it's actually quite different. And the reason is, number one, mobile homes obviously is much less mobile, right? Than even called mobile homes than RV parks. So it's easier to get financing. Fannie Mae, for example, and Freddie Mac have pretty nice program for mobile homes. And number two is that
owner or for you?
For the landlord.
So the landlord, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac will provide financing to the mobile home park owner. Okay. That
is correct. Yep. Especially if the park is, primarily owned. Especially if the homes on the park are primarily owned by the tenants. So tenant-owned homes. It's even easier because now we, as the landlord, we just own a piece of dirt plus the basic utility infrastructure. So a few key differences are, number one, mobile homes parks are easier to get financing than RV parks. And number two, once the mobile home get brought into the park and start settling down, you will very rarely see any mobile home to have a lot of movements, because each time we move, it's about $4,000 to $5,000. The mobile home parks that we bought last year, for example, not a single mobile home have been moved so far because of high cost associated with moving. I think the less mobility, easier to get financing, is the advantage for mobile home parks. But on the flip side, one park we bought last year, we have 14 vacant space. We're trying to find 14 new mobile homes. It is quite challenging because of COVID. All the new ones has been in very short supply, and all the used ones are being bought at a premium. So it's harder for us to fill a mobile home parks than RV park, to kind of get like the pros and cons of both worlds.
How do lot rents compare? Are they similar, or is there a difference between them?
It's very market driven, Steve. So, I think if both are at a similar market, they're pretty comparable. But you've got mobile homes that, we are lot rent, for example, $250 is considered high end. There are other markets that our lot rent can raise to as high as $500 and still considered below market. So it's very, very, market driven. And a quick math we typically do is we do a market rent study of the local apartments for the 2-bedroom to see how much they charge. So let's say if a 2-bedroom apartment at a given market charges, $800 a month, we can come in with pretty close estimate. Just divide that number by 2. So $400, right? 800 divided by 2, $400. So $400 will be the market rent for a lot rent for the mobile home parks. It always comes up and down, but that, divided by 2 sort of calculation works pretty well for us in most markets.
So I have to just tell you, and I bought a mobile home for the first time ever about a month ago at this point right now, and it was in a park, and I ended up having to apply to become a tenant in the park in order to keep the mobile home in there, and I had to go through the whole application process. They made us jump through a lot of hoops. It was tough. Right. The lot rent was $425 a month. We spent a couple of days in the park selling off the personal items that came along with it, doing sort of a garage sale. And so I got a lot more exposure to being in a mobile home park that I had never really experienced before. And I have to tell you, it was definitely a different culture. Everyone appeared to be very content. And coming from my world where, people want to own more and they want the stuff, they were very content where they were. And the thought that sort of came into my mind often was, for $425 a month, you could go off and buy an acre of land. You could put a well and septic tank and put your trailer on that and own your place for probably less than the $425 a month. And you could actually have a real asset that you could do something with. And so it was just sort of a head scratcher to me, that, like, why would people not do that? Have you, in your time and just interactions with people in the mobile home parks, what is the mentality that why people choose to be in a mobile home park rather than taking that step to owning land rather than renting a space there?
Yeah, so we had an interesting conversation, Steve, to answer your question, about 2-3 months ago in a mobile home park in Mississippi that we own. There are 31 tenants in that park currently, and out of 31, there are 25 homes that are owned by the landlord, by the park, by us. So tenants don't actually own their homes, and we don't want to be in a mobile home business. We want to be in their business. We sit there with every single one of the 25 tenants and say, hey, we would like to sell a financing those homes to you. Oh, can you hear me, Steve?
Yep, now it's...
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So we had 25 conversations with 20 tenants in their living room because we own a home, right? But we don't want to own a home. So we asked them, hey, would you like to have the opportunity to own homes? Oh, we can afford it. I don't about it. No, altogether you're paying us, $600 rent each month. You're going to continue to pay the same amount for the next 3 years, and partial go to the park payment. Hey, Steve, can you hear me?
Now I can. You were breaking up a little, but now I can hear you.
All right. Sorry. I think I'm not moving, but I think the reception here is not the best.
So hold on just
And
one
once
second.
one would give you an option to purchase their home.
I'm gonna re-summarize what you were just going through, just so everybody knows, and then we'll have you pick up again. So Jeff bought the mobile home park, 31 spaces in the park. 25 of the people did not own the homes; they were renting the house from the park. And so Jeff, after buying this park, did not want to own the homes. Only thing he's interested in owning is the dirt underneath the home and collecting lot rent. So the goal was to sell the homes to the tenants. And he talked about sitting in the living room, meeting with the tenants and offering them the opportunity to be able to own the home. So can you pick up from that point, Jeff?
Absolutely. And their first reaction is, oh, I don't think we can afford a home. I said, okay. And once we break down the number, which is right now they're paying $650 a month altogether because we own a home. We say, you know what? Continue to pay $650 for the next 3 to 4 years, out of which $350 will go to the lot rent and $300 a month will go towards paying us as the seller financing to pay off your home, right? So $300 mortgage payment a month times 12 months, that's $3,600. 3,600 times 3 years, that's roughly $10,000. That's how much the home is worth. So basically we're saying, how do you feel about paying the same rent for the next 3 years? And they're going to be owning a home. By then your rent would drop from 650 down to 300. And almost all of them were jumping with joy. So absolutely love to take it. And one tenant has lived there for 12 years. And he said, you know what, Jeff? And also my partner, Paul, if you guys came 12 years earlier, we could have owned 3 to 4 homes right now in the community. We said, you know what, it's not too late. So when they were given the opportunity, they almost all of them take it, without any hesitation. And to answer your question of why would not more people do about it, I think people just are not given those type of opportunity, or people thought of it. But when people are given the right opportunity, that is beneficial for both parties. I think most people jump all over it for sure.
Okay. All right, so Jeff, you own single family homes, you own RV parks, you have apartment buildings, and you have mobile home parks. Any other asset class that you own?
Well, those 4 are my primary focus, but invested in, not necessarily on the active sponsorship side, just passively invested in. I've got self-storage, self-storage, some shopping centers, and as a passive investor.
And you've chosen that from this point forward, you're not going to pursue those much anymore. You really want the affordable housing categories.
That's right. I love the affordable housing.
Okay. So single family homes versus apartment buildings versus RV parks versus mobile home parks. Can you tell us what is your favorite one and why, maybe pros and cons of each of them?
Well, I mean, this is an interesting and tough one, Steve. I mean, because the time frame of when we bought our rental property, as is way earlier, back in 2013 and 14. Just from a pure financial perspective, return perspective, Steve, I'll say my favorite one is actually, ironically, single family home, because the price has appreciated so much. We've done 2 rounds of cash out refinance, have no business in property, while still has cash flow. And in 15 years, the tenant's going to pay off the mortgage. By then, our daughter will be in college. We're going to do that all over again. I probably have frozen. Can you hear me, Steve?
Breaking up a little, but I can make out what you're saying.
Sure. So in terms of financial return so far, because the time frame within a single family space, that's been the best performing so far. That being said, from the scalability perspective, I think I would like the RV parks and mobile home parks. simply because the cost basis per home is so much lower than single family and apartments, and the return is on a risk adjusted basis, the return is pretty phenomenal. So from a scalability perspective, and also from the return, that the ROI perspective, I would like the mobile home parks and RV.
Okay, so you're out in the market looking for single family homes. You're out in the market looking for RV parks and mobile home parks. I'm well aware of what's going on, and you just tried to buy a single family home and you were offering above list price for it. Do you find yourself going in and offering above list price to get RV parks and mobile home parks?
No, it's we love the market inefficiency. A single family, for most part, is very efficient, especially when it comes to the MLS. We're not talking about the wholesale and rehab. It's a very, very efficient market. The whole entire United States can get onto MLS to buy it, versus mobile home and RV space, because the institution are getting into the space right now, but for most part, it's still sort of like a less known asset class. So this deal, for example, we put in a contract. It's a 110 unit RV park outside of Houston. We find this deal by someone calling the park number and somehow get connected with the seller, who said, "Oh, this is the purchase price we're thinking about," which makes sense for us. And it's not on the MLS. Because of that, because of market inefficiency, we're able to buy those parks at a pretty nice discounted rate to where it's worth as of today.
And I want, just so everyone can know, you want to be in, there's a certain percentage that you want to be in at of the, what for all intents and purposes in the single family home world, we call it the after repair value. I think you refer to it something like market optimized value or something, but what is it that you refer to it after you've come on in and made the improvements, and what percentage do you want to be in at?
Absolutely. So we're very conservative, and when it comes to mobile home and RV parks, and one of our key criteria is that our all-in cost, which is purchase price plus the renovation, the all-in cost, need to be at or below 70% of the ARV or after repair value, so that we need to have a good 30% equity cushion from day one that we know of. And for some of the deals with Bob, we're buying those at 50% or 55% ARV, which is even better. But 70% is going to be a pretty firm line that we draw to ourselves. We need to be at or below 70% ARV.
And so where people are sometimes struggling to find deals with the single family home market today, you're not struggling to find deals with mobile home parks and RV parks.
Yep. I wouldn't use the word struggle per se, but it does take a lot of work in order to find a deal that fits buying criteria. As an example, right? You go to single family, go to Zillow's and other website, and for multifamily, go to Craigslist and LoopNet. And if you look at those platforms, I'll say 99.9% of those deals on there are being sold at close to 90 to 100% ARV. That would not necessarily work. So in order to find those deals that are 50% and 55% and 60% ARV, you have to, lay a lot of groundwork down to lay the pavement, in order to find those deals. And how we approach it is, instead of us taking a deal from A to Z, we'll tell the world we're open, we love to do joint venture structure, right? So if you don't know how to take down an RV park and how to take down a mobile home park, we have the ability to take it from B to Z. All you need is give us a phone number of the owner who wants to sell, and we can do the rest. So we're actually able to get quite a few good off-market leads from that. And this lead in Houston, for example, someone literally just called a home. Someone within our friends call it, talk to us, and we have this deal locked up, and he's going to be getting a very nice chunk of the equity going in, and everybody wins. So that's how we're able to find those off-market deals through the joint venture structure.
That's awesome. So for everybody who's on the line, if you didn't just hear that, If you come across that kind of deal and you don't know what to do with it, or you don't know how to pull it off, Jeff is in the Lifeonaire app, and you can reach him through that, and reach out to him and say, hey, I think maybe I found one. Would you take a look at this one with me? And he can help to make it work, and you'll get a percentage of it for bringing the deal to the table.
Yeah, and one heads up, Steve, is that we do come across a pretty healthy amount of deal flow. And I think if there's one thing that I do more than anything else is the frequency of me saying no. I'll say, no, here is why. No, here's why. That's the only way to not doing a bad deal, because our philosophy is we'd rather not do a bad deal than miss 10 good ones, because a bad deal can drag you down. So, I mean, chances are I'm going to say no to a lot of them, but I'll give a clear reason of why that is, so that the next time the people will bring deals that fits the buy criteria much, much more. So just a heads up.
Mm-hmm. Well, Jeff, anything else? Well, let me ask you this. So how does all of this tie into Lifeonaire? What does, the vehicle of affordable housing that you're pursuing, how does it help you to live and experience the life that you want to live?
Wow, we love it, Steve. I mean, I think that before we joined Lifeonaire last fall, I think we have a pretty good idea of where we want our life to look like, and where we want to go, etc. But among our friends, our lifestyle is considered, I don't know, crazy is the right word, but it's not normal if you will. Once we join Lifeonaire, within our group, we're like, oh, we've got 10 other crazy people just like us. So we become, much more, we're not the only one out there, if you will. So that support is huge. Let's see. And also, I think we're getting very closer and closer to our vision. And some part of that, I think we are already living in our vision. My wife, Chloe, she is planning on quitting her full-time job that she's been for 10 plus years at the end of this year. And the way that the business is designed, thanks to a lot of concepts I get from Lifeonaire, is that instead of me trying to do everything from A to Z and buy 22 in a mobile home, I say, you know what, based on my background, based on this and that, those are the one or two things that do pretty well. And then I'll find other joint venture partners who is much better at other things that I don't even know how to go about. And what happened is the scalability is just pretty amazing. And I've got, right now I have two joint venture partners that I work with on a regular basis, not just business, but also family and other background, which share very, very equally. It makes the business so much easier. So one of the business partner, for example, we bought our first 5 unit together last May, worked out so well that, let's do something more. Then from 5 to 48, 48 to 125, 225. It sounds crazy on numbers, but once, and I think, Steve, a lot of credit to you. I think you gave me some pretty good guidance in terms of who to associate with and who not to associate with. And that just makes life, not just business, but also life so much easier and happier to work with people that share the same value with on a daily basis. So I think after joining Lifeonaire, because of the advice, a few pieces of advice here and there, I think we feel pretty good about living our life vision, if not part of that, well, if not already our life vision already. So
awesome. Well, Jeff, thank you so much. In closing, I just want to encourage everyone who is on the call. The intent here was not to say, hey, you should all be doing what Jeff is doing. Our goal at Lifeonaire is not to clone you, but to open your eyes to the different possibilities that are out there. Jeff has really embraced what it is that he is doing. He is doing it well. He's doing it very well. But it is most importantly allowing him and his family to live and experience the life that they desire to live. And, I just want to encourage those of you who might come across this. If you have any questions or anything like that, join us in the Lifeonaire app, ask those questions. You can reach out to me, you can reach out to Jeff and the community as a whole and just ask questions of us. We love to help people. Our goal is to help people live and experience the life that they want to live. And what we were sharing with you today is just some other possibilities that just might be the right thing for some of you to pursue. Again, it's not intended to be a shiny object to distract you. If you've already got a good path and a good plan that's working for you, don't let this be a distraction. Go make a lot of money there and then invest some of your excess with Jeff. that would be the way that you could get involved without having to drop everything you're doing and to start a whole new business. But again, we're in the Lifeonaire app. And so if you don't have the app, just download it to your phone, or you can access it from your desktop. You can participate in the community. But Jeff, thank you so much for your time today. I hope that your trip to Houston is a blessed one, and just continue praying for you and your family, and many blessings over you guys.
Thank you. Thank you for everything you've done for me, for our family, for the community, Steve. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. All right, everyone, have a great day. If you have any questions or anything, feel free, join us on the app, ask the questions there. We covet those questions. We love it. So hopefully we'll hear from you soon.